Call to order the March 15, 2023 North Clackamas Parks and Recreation District Board of Directors meeting. Gary, would you please call the roll?
Yes, Chair Smith. First, our staff support this evening, clerk to the board, Tony Mayernick, District Council, Jeff Munns, Parks Director, Mike Orr, roll call, Director Scholl.
Here.
Director Savis.
Present.
Chair Smith.
Here.
And the other directors are on their way.
Good. Okay, thank you. I will now lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America
and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Well, good evening, everyone. We have a nice, healthy crowd here. I suspect because the weather is wonderful and with daylight savings time, it's still light outside. I know I look forward to that every year. We are holding this meeting in person and virtually. If you've joined us via Zoom for this meeting and are interested in providing public comment, we will prompt you regarding how to do that when the time is right. General public comment will be taken at the usual allotted time. I would like to remind all participants, including staff, all elected officials, and members of the public that Robert's Rules of Order will be used in this business meeting. We welcome your opinions and look forward to your polite participation. Gary, can you introduce the first item?
Yes, Chair Smith. First, we have a presentation, and it is a report on the second quarterly financial report. Mike Orr, Director of the Parks District, will present.
Thank you. This information was included in your packet, and this was the same second quarter report that we provided to the District Advisory Committee and really, I just wanted to highlight this is one of our regular reports we plan on bringing to you at our quarterly meetings. There's no big surprises in the second quarter financials, though. In our first quarter, we had said we hadn't gotten most of our property tax. We have. We've gotten, I believe it was 91+% of our property tax collection in the second quarter. Our revenues are higher at this point than we're forecasted for right now, and we have been seeing higher participation. And our expenditures and revenues are just kind of across the board as we would expect for a second quarter. We're bringing in money in some areas and spending it in others, but not consistently in a manner that would reflect here. But generally, we're on track as expected, and I'd be willing to take any questions that you might have.
Mike, you said revenues were a little bit higher than anticipated, and why was that again?
Well, we've been seeing higher participation at our Milwaukee Community Center events, at the Aquatic Center. People are, I think, to quote you, are getting out and enjoying the sun and the nice weather, but they have been for a while.
Good, that's good to hear. Mr. Savis.
Yeah, Mike, there was a question posed by one of the DAC members regarding some charges to the SDC accounts. Was that responded to?
It was initially, we're still gathering the specific information, but really what was asked was there are ongoing charges with things like our SDC methodology in Milwaukee Bay Park. Even though the projects have been put on hold, there's still ongoing staff costs associated. There's other miscellaneous things that we still have to pay some bills on. For example, Milwaukee Bay Park, it's about $30,000 or $40,000 each month that there's still staff and meetings and things that are going on, even though the project is not moving forward on the design and construction side. So those have been consistent. They'll continue that way until we bring those projects back to full operation.
I appreciate that. I'd like to get more detail about that. I'm a little, I just assumed that they would either an equal amount would be taken out of each SDC zone or out of one single SDC zone, certainly not the SDC zone where project resides. Where the project doesn't reside.
We have to take these out of whatever zone the project's in. That's why we're zonal. And there's a zone 1 SDC and then a zone 1 UGMA. Long before I got here, most of the project cost for Milwaukee Bay Park has been getting charged out of the zone 1 UGMA. And We were just talking about, should we change that for next year? But that doesn't change the fact that even though the projects are on hold, there are still ongoing costs associated with them.
Okay, so the zone 2 charges I see here are associated with what?
I would have to defer, is Heather in the, because I don't have all of the specifics on that.
I don't have it in front of me, but I can offer what I have off the top of my head. I don't have it in front of me.
I would prefer for us to get back if you have those kind of specific questions.
Yeah,
But we're not spending Milwaukee Bay Park money out of the zone that's outside of Milwaukee Bay Park.
Yeah, okay, I appreciate a detailed response.
We
I
will-
thought that for a couple of weeks it might be, but apparently it's pretty good, so.
Okay, we'll get that.
Any other questions for the presenter on this financial statement? Good. Well, thank you, Mike.
Thank you.
That's very good. Gary, what's up next?
Next, still under presentation, next is a report from the chair of the District Advisory Committee for NCPRD, Grover Bornfeld is the chair and a dedicated volunteer. Thank you, Grover, for being here.
Welcome, Grover. Please introduce yourself when you get ready.
Right, gotta get all the equipment in the right place.
Okay.
So, thank you all. I'm thrilled that we're meeting in person. My name is Grover Jeffrey Bornefeld, and I am the chair for the next few months of the Clackamas NCPRD. And I also am a resident here in the unincorporated area in Jennings Lodge. So that's me. And what I wanted to do was sort of, since, okay, Don, can't catch him up if he isn't here. I wanted to do a little bit of catching up, so I may slide over that. Does he do shortly or?
Well, you know as much as I do.
Okay, good.
We have a form here tonight, so I opted to start on time. Gary, you say there, both commissioners are en route.
Both I've said they'd be en route.
Sorry about that.
Okay, so anyway, it's been 4 years since I sat in this very room with several other community members, and we made a request of the sitting board at that time to look at reshaping how NCPRD was governed by the District Advisory Committee and how that was selected. And here we sit, and we've already been through 2 cycles, and we're about to start our 3rd cycle of that process of having sub areas that will have the people who live in that sub area have the opportunity to select candidates from that sub area to be the recommended candidates that your board will then appoint to serve on the District Advisory Committee. And this was a request that came from the board, y'all, because you wanted to have not only the proportional representation, but also an opportunity that more people from the unincorporated area, so that would be sub areas 1, 2, 3, and 4, sub area 5 is Milwaukee, that those people would have more opportunity. And living in the unincorporated now for 30 some odd years, I know there was a significant amount of disappointment, apathy, unawareness, etc., throughout our area, and some upsets and so forth. But and then in the process of doing that, I've got to know people who live in sub area 3, which for all intents and purposes is Sunnyside, and then also in addition to that, people in sub area 4, which is more or less North Mount Scott, and I don't know what to call that area over there. Southgate is the approximate area. And so getting to know those people and find out how unconnected they were directly. Some people do go swim at the pool and so on and so forth, but other than that, not much awareness. And we've been watching for a lot of years about how the development has taken place within NCPRD. And so when 83,000 people, over 80% of the district, have 16 parks, and then there's another 16 parks in another part, and then 9 parks left. We're looking at how can we look at the whole district and what the need. And I'm a bit of a I like to know what the source documents were. So I used the comprehensive plan as a source document. And in the comprehensive plan, they specifically outlined, still there to this day, how NCPRD could be formed. And it was primarily the unincorporated, and any cities who wanted to join in could, was how it was suggested, and that's how we set up. But it was specifically, and they named specific areas: Oak Lodge being one of those two areas, of being the highest priority for developing. And this was done well over 30 years ago. And here I am to say that it's just now, and that's what I want to report on a minute ago. But now that we have Mr. Weston, thank you for being here, because I really wanted to bring two of you up, because this is not, ancient history. We've done with the approval of y'all, a process. We had a policy team that put together a method of having the unincorporated areas be able to nominate. And then through a process of, and it's only been Zoom up till now, we're hoping for a hybrid meeting for this year, but been able to then meet the candidates, ask them questions, and then make their choice and then forward that on to y'all. So we're getting ready to start that. April is the perfect time to begin to advertise it. And then in May is when we would have the first meeting, in the latter part of May, and then in June, the second meeting, similar to what we did last year and the year before that, to be able to then be ready by the end of the fiscal year to have any vacancies where we have two potential vacancies. So two people either have to be re-elected or others elected in their place, unless there's some dropouts between now and then. So that's what I wanted to bring up to y'all, is that's the process we have. It was approved by you. You implemented the task force to do it, and several members of that task force are here, and we continue to work as an implementation team. We're volunteers, and while several of us wear different hats, I know you can relate to that, but we have different hats that we wear based on different committees or boards or task forces we're on. But in truth, we're all citizens, live right here, and we want to make sure that we're not overlooked. We don't want special dispensation, but it has been over 30 years that both us and the area called Overland, which is pretty much Fred Meyer's, what's
King Road.
King Road, yeah, that area in there is part of Clackamas County, and they were the other identified neglected area. So that's a long way of getting around to what I want to talk about. Is I'm thrilled that in the last 2 years almost, we have been able to, thank you, Mike, coming on board, and then slowly building the team. And that's what has been, in my opinion, that and the interaction with the DAC, more and more of the things that we've been hoping for are coming forward. I also wanted to, and I might be a little out of order here, but there's one thing I don't want to let go. I watched the bulk of your meeting, because I had a meeting and then I went into your meeting when you were working on Project Turnkey. So thank you for that marathon 1 and 2. Thank you for the outcome, because I believe that our need to address the challenges that people live with to help them get back on a positive track. And for those of you who don't know, I spent 30 years working with some of the most high-risk teenagers and their families, and poverty and gangs and all that stuff. And for me, you can see there is clearly, all they have to do is see that they're not helplessly hopeless. And you don't tell them that, you help them see that for themselves, and the whole world changes. So to have that kind of process to help people who suffer, in my opinion, drug addictions is a symptom of a bigger problem, and to address that is where we are. So I'm also want to acknowledge y'all for the Veterans Village, because in truth, I don't know if you know, but according to statistics I see, the veterans, I'm a veteran, and the veterans in Oregon have a higher suicide rate than anywhere else in the country. And they're also higher than the national average. So I'm glad we're moving forward on that as well. But back to what we've accomplished.
Thank you for that. It means a lot to us.
Yeah,
Being here tonight.
and to me, to you, I mean, it's like, if I had more time, if I could sit in more chairs, I would, because that's a project that's near and dear to me. But I got started with my CPO and then the library and then this, and so. And I'm hoping to retire soon.
Okay.
Okay, so what I want to talk about is the things that have been accomplished. So there's a grant currently out to help with a playground area here from the Oregon Parks and Rec. There's also, we had our first in-person in this very room, District Advisory Committee meeting, and it was so night and day different than all those, because we've only met as a board, as a committee, as in Zoom. So then we've also, as it's been floating along there, we started our goal setting process, and that whole board was full And we're gonna get to see it summed up, and at our next meeting, we will pick up from there, starting with a 50-year, 20-year, 5-year, and what's next process, and the whole group participated, so I was thrilled to see that. Also, the update of our capital improvement plan now includes this site and several other things that weren't on there, some of the trails, etc., which allows that to go forward. And the Metro Share has identified this site as being the first part of the Clackamas NCPRD funding. And also, it's not that on Heather's here in a bigger crowd. I wanted to tell her, I am so thrilled with the over time increase in the amount of information, timelines, details that we're getting in the monthly reports. It really, much like the conversation here, I need details. And that we're doing okay is okay, but could you be elaborate? But anyway, so that's going on well. So kudos to you, Heather. And then I understand, and this is something I want to talk about. And you might be able to set me straight, or somebody else might, but so there's a contract going out to do something that also is very dear to many of us. Jennings Lodge is a school which is now a early childhood education center, and there's going to be a renegotiation of the IGA with Oregon City schools, and there's going to be a contract for folks to do the actual planning outreach process. And my request is that as the district advisory committee and as also a member of the community planning organization that is at the heart of that, that we have some way before standards and that what do you call it? Well, yeah, the list of things you're going to accomplish, scope of work, that the scope of work can have some input as opposed to be done by a different group, because like I said, we've been involved for a long time in those things, and there has yet to be any direct connection. And I understand there's some sense that, well, when it went for an RFP, nobody could see it until it was published. But now, once it's being finalized, what's going to be in that scope of work? Is it only what the staff thinks to be in it, or is it there going to be some community input to it? I am a major advocate for community input, which is another kudo I want to put out. Public and Government Affairs has launched a project called Community Engagement this year, which deals with the IA, that's International Association of Public Participation. And it is being rolled out to be implemented across Clackamas County. I couldn't be happier. All of the work I've done is based on the value that comes from community participation. It's messier many times, but you have more people on board when you cross the finish line than the other way, when many people unfortunately become resigned because they don't feel included. So that's that. And then the last thing I want to speak to, I don't know where I'm doing on time, but I want to make sure I talk about where we're going on so 30 years ago, and 32 years ago, NCPRD was launched with 5 sub areas, and each one of those sub areas had its own neighborhood parks board made up of local people. And that board then selected one of their members to be a representative on the regional board, much like we do with the library districts right now. I'm on the library district advisory committee in that same way, and on the library board. But the point of it is that provides a channel for local people to have input into a bigger system. And I know that we are in the process of exploring having NCPRD potentially change from being a 451 county organization to a 266 independent organization. And that was discussed at the last meeting here, but where they are as we're moving forward. And I want to strongly speak to the importance of having community input on how that is, because if we can have the same kind of representation, as opposed to have a bunch of people who live in one area and they're most of the board, it doesn't continue the process that we worked so hard on. We now have 5 additional friends of groups that didn't exist before we started this 2 years ago. There's a Friends of Justice Properties, a Friends of Jennings Lodge, Park at, there's a Friends of Park at New Urban, there's a Friends of Park at River Villa, and there's a Friends of Alma Myra Park. And all of those are community members who care about that, are getting involved. And now we've rolled out the adoptive park, which I understand the justice property, people are getting in on that. So all I really want to advocate for is that we can continue to engage more community. Surveys are great, but that's only the people that answer the surveys. These are people who care about parks and say they care about parks and get engaged in and come to meetings and show up. So that's what I'm here to advocate for. And the last piece, as I alluded to, is I'm hoping that we can do some variation instead of doing Zoom only for the 2 meetings that go through the sub areas, choosing their representatives. I'd like to be able to consider doing a hybrid, because the difference for being in person, if you remember the swearing in ceremony, I mean, that was a phenomenal community feel. And then you remember after the choosing to close the gap on the library funding, well, all of those with lots of people being part of the participation, it just is a very different feel. And I'd like to get that feel into how it is to be part of NCPRD, part of NCPRD's guidance, which is what the DAC is. And I think, and the only other thing, listening to the conversation earlier, is that we're stuck right now, but I am significantly interested in how we can stop the zones. Because the zones are actually to have the money that the people who live in Southgate in the UGMA being used, and they're one of the least parked areas in the entire district, and yet their $4 million is up for grabs in the zone, and they don't have any say. And I really want to advocate for shifting that. So my request is please keep supporting us. Let us know that if you have any concerns or questions about how we do what we did last year, the year before, but the outreach, and I'd only like to consider that we'd like to upgrade it to, with community involvement, some version of hybrid.
Thank you very much, and I'm going to have you pause right now because there are at least 4 major policy questions that you have presented to us tonight. One of which is about 4:30 this afternoon. I checked my email and you sent over quite a lengthy document.
You approved it already.
Well, no, my point is this. We like to get things like at least 24 hours ahead of time. That's in accordance with public meetings law. It helps the board prepare for the barrage of requests that you have put on us tonight. We are not in a position to make, I don't think, any decisions on that. I had one person read that document, and there might be some confusion in how the document reads to what you're saying tonight. But before that, we're going to take up the issue of the Zoom and hybrid. I don't even know if it's possible. It's not possible for us. This is Zoom. It's not video.
Zoom only.
But it's not video. When you say,
Hybrid because they're here. People are here.
okay, but are you talking about your additional meetings? Are you talking about this meeting? Are you talking about your meetings that you engage in every month?
Well, there are already hybrids anyway. We did in this very room, just like this.
So
No,
what's the issue if we're already doing it is my point.
okay, no, because we have the meetings that, so first of all, Milwaukee has a structure in place and they have a library board. And they're able to communicate with their people with that board. We don't have library boards in sub area 1, 2, 3, or 4.
Well, Grover, please, this is NCPRD meeting tonight. Parks Board.
Oh, what did I say?
Library.
Oh, I meant parks.
So you're confusing me on what you're.
Well, I apologize, I'm an old man, but I meant parks and it came out
Okay.
library.
Okay, thank you.
We have the library board meeting tomorrow night.
Right?
No, it's totally parks. Parks and only parks. My
And
mistake.
Mike, how are we doing on that?
We did a successful hybrid meeting at the last DAC meeting. The difficulty we're having is incorporating video on the screen into it, but board member or committee members were able to participate fully using the owl and the speaker for the goal setting process. We just are having difficulty putting it onto a big screen and having that work.
And we still have some of that difficulty
Right.
at the county offices. just because of internet connections and they aren't what we would like them to be.
But that won't be till May and June that I'm referring to having those two meetings, and they will be the same thing that were only Zoom the last 2 years. And
Well,
so being able to do them hybrid, since we have the circuit, the
I
system.
don't think that you really need us to vote whether you do
No.
hybrid, just show up and do it.
Okay, good.
I mean, we were not gonna say you can't do what you wanna do in
Oh,
this
good.
area. And we are not.
That's
going
what I need to hear.
And you ask for all these participation of all these groups I've never heard of before. Show up. I mean, just show up. We are not gonna say, no, these wonderful people can't participate in the process. It's not up for us, I don't believe. Gary?
So Grover, you're speaking about the selection of the community members to the district advisory committee, which are chosen by sub areas, which you've already approved previously, previous board approved. You're just asking for those meetings that you hybrid, in person and Zoom. Is that what you're asking for?
Yes, because of the significant difference it makes having them be hybrid, so people actually can be in person, like our first DAC meeting last week was in person. So yes, that is the request, and that's what I'm asking for.
Staff will do all we can to accommodate. Everything costs money, but we'll do what we can to accommodate, and we'll work offline with you, Grover. And
Okay. Okay, thank you.
And-
And the document I sent, just to clarify, was only a summary of the task force suggestions as far as guidelines on how to do that process. So it wasn't new news. It was just that.
And I think we have a couple other questions that you raised, but Commissioner Showing you in the queue.
Yes, Mr. Bornfeld, thank you for your civic action everywhere I go. There you are. Public involvement is really important for good government. And regarding your community task force for meetings for May and June.
Well, those are sub-area meetings to
Sub-area
put a
meetings,
right
okay.
title on it. Yes.
Okay, sub-area meetings. Do you have everything you need in terms of support, help, coordination from the county or from Mr. Bork to be successful?
It worked very fine last year, and if we could just replicate the support we had last year, both from that part and then also by requirement, anyone who wants to be a district advisory committee representative has to send in their application like any other ABC to PGA. And the only thing that's different is PGA has in the past let us know how it was going, so we know if there were any areas that didn't have people, so we could work harder in that area to keep doing it. And NCPRD did a phenomenal job. We'll just take the same material they used last year, change the dates, and basically run with the same material. And it's a matter of through the NCPRD at the sites, etc. Put up a little flyer and send it out through the Facebook and the things they did before, and that worked great. Because
Okay, good. I'm happy.
all of that's supporting our ability to have more support for NCPRD from a broader audience that isn't currently being reached.
Okay, I'm happy to hear that. Thank you.
You brought up something about a school district in Oregon City School, and I'm at a loss of really what you were requesting on that. Mike, can you address that?
Yes, currently we have Jennings Lodge as a project that's on our capital list that we've been working on. As part of the project, we have to do planning and design work. To do that, we have to put out a contract for that planning and design work. There's scope of that contract, and then there's scope of the project. We're not putting in the contract what the scope of the project is. But we do have to put out a scope of what we're expecting of that contract. We have to abide by procurement rules and laws to have a fair and impartial scored and eligible process. I've explained this several times that we can't have, I don't even get involved until I sign a bid tabulation that says this has been scored by other people. And because this was the lowest or best bid. So once we have a contract, which we can't sign a contract for the design work until we have an updated IGA, which there's necessity to update the IGA that is existing in place with the school district because the use has changed. So once we have that updated IGA, then we can move forward with our design, with our contract process. Once that's done, then that contractor is going to do the public engagement piece of gathering information from different stakeholder groups, different meetings, and then that will help inform the scope of what the actual project may be. So we're following general procurement guidelines and practices.
At what point, anybody can answer this for me, is appropriate for public communication or input on this? Is it at all? I mean,
After a contract is approved.
so there's a process by which public, yeah, and on, I suppose you're wanting to comment on what they're gonna use the Jenny Lodge School for? Is that what I heard you say?
There's many of us who would like to comment on that. Yes, that's true.
Okay, well, I would suggest if you want to comment and have ideas, it would be most helpful if you would start formulating those ideas and put them in writing. And I'm not making promises here because, you know, everything that I hear is more money, more money, more money. And we're still trying to finish this place here. Okay, I mean, seriously, there are priorities of funding that we have to adhere to. And we can have all the best ideas in the world, Grover, as you know. But, so, you know, I think that's probably the best way for you people to proceed on that and start talking about amongst yourselves. Mr. Salas?
Yeah, thank you. I have my card up for a couple of reasons, but I'll just address this one, and that is, I do know there is opportunity or has been opportunity in past public processes sometimes when, you know, we at least had a thumbnail sketch of the content of the first RFP. And of course, the scope of work comes afterwards, like Mr. Boyd described. But I just want to make sure, I think we all want to make sure that there's no restrictions that disable our ability maybe to pursue any and all ideas and concepts out there. So I do understand and respect the RFP process, but I also do know that not all of it is subject to privacy or can't be shared at all at some point. So I think there is an opening. I just want to advocate for that. It's not normal, but this community is this community has been involved in many ways in many committees. And I want to steer my conversation that way because that's why I have my card up. This once called the District Advisory Board, which is now called the District Advisory Committee, has been through what I would just say hell. And the hell dates back to the withdrawal of Happy Valley and that period of time. And the District Advisory Board at the time was put on hiatus for years. So the momentum and the work and the following all these processes, projects, and so forth, the community was at a severe handicap, and we've been quite disconnected from that. Then it comes along COVID, and then comes along all the other emergencies, and we tried to get the DAB kick-started, which became the DAC with. I would describe as geographic zones or representation called sub-area, as Grover was alluding to. And I'm doing this for the benefit of Commissioner Scholl and Commissioner West, because I think some of you know this already. But so all to say, there is really a lot of, also during that period of time of COVID and prior to COVID, we also had library activity. And we also had the Concord Project Task Force, which some of the people in this room are here for or about indirectly or directly. And so there's been a substantial, and Gary knows this, he was being the administrator and prior the PGA director. He knows how involved this community has been, and more so than most other committees and areas combined. So I say that with gratitude to all of you for your patience. I do know it's been rough, and as we try to online all these things to get ourselves back up to speed, and the processes and the interrelationships and communication between the community and the staff of all the different departments or districts and so on. We're just anxious to get it back. They are as well. And I hear that, and I just applaud you all for your patience for being here tonight. And it is great to see you all. You're all faces here tonight. They're not all here, by the way, just some of them are here tonight. But I just want to thank you for your work. And if you can help support what the needs of the DAC, by all means, that's what we're here to do. So
Thank you.
Any other questions that need to be answered from Gary or Jeff or Michael on that?
No, I think on this issue for Jennings Lodge, I think we're continuing to work on that, and that'll be a real.
Sounds like it's gonna be a while. Sounds like it's gonna be a while. Yeah, those projects never go as long as fast as, I want them. I'm involved in so many construction projects in the county. I said, we're still on first base, please move it along. And nobody's more impatient than me, so, I understand that very much, but, like I said, you can make requests, but I would like you to be mindful of the budgets. And, we have a lot of requests and a lot of money. And everybody thinks we have these really deep pockets. I mean, every day we're getting a request for something. Just ask the commissioners. We're getting requests for everything. And there seems to be a lot of pent up momentum coming forward. Oh, you need to pay for this and you need to pay for this. We do have a financial footing in this district, okay? But if you get the documents and you read them and you read the projections going forward, I think some of you who have dealt with public budgets in your lives will understand. There's so much money here, and there's so much money here, and so much money here. And sometimes our hearts go out much further than what a dollar can provide. Is there anything you would like else to say?
Yes, it would. And I'd just like to clarify I sent that document I sent today mostly with Commissioner West and Commissioner Shaw in mind. Because the rest of you, I do believe were involved when that came down. It gives the background.
I see.
And all I really want to do is be able to, because I appreciate what you talk about money. So I ran nonprofits for 30 years and I was the executive director and I had to, supposed to have a board raise a top. I raised all the money by and large, but my point of it is, if you read that document I sent, it talks about how it's using community engagement teams, volunteer brain power, people power, etc., to do the bulk of the work. It is that this room exists and that machine exists, but it's not about having significant staffing requirements. And that's so I am
Okay,
very
that's
mindful
really
of many
good.
parts.
That's good to know. And I do like the idea of engaging all the years of knowledge back then, because we don't know what we know. I scanned the document fast. It's a good reminder for all of us, regardless of how long we've sat here on the district, on this district. So there's nothing wrong with that.
Right.
But I would like to give you all a thought, if you would, please. We are mindful and have acknowledged where we have been in the past. Okay, let's put that to bed. And it's time we move forward with progressive ideas on how to get stuff accomplished. We talk about the past a lot since I become as chair, and there's nothing that I can do about the past. The only change I can affect is the present and the future. So I would like you all to think about that going forward, how we're going to be successful and how we're going to leave a legacy for our children and our grandchildren. That's the very best that you can do.
Thank you. And I'd like to make sure I'm on the same side with you. Thank you for that.
All right. Any other comments from the folks here? Gary, what's next?
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Next is a board discussion item, Oak Lodge Library land discussion. Mike will tee it off and Jeff and I will answer and help us all. Go ahead, Mike.
Thank you, Jeff. And Gary, sorry, I typed in the wrong password with my report on.
Well, that's okay. Those machines go off if don't.
I wasn't paying attention and it did, yes.
Yes, right.
Really just to summarize, the report that you've got in, your packet. We tried to summarize the options of the unique nature of what we're talking about here, which is NCPRD owned property with a library being built by the county, owned by the county. And so how do we have this land agreement? That's ultimately what we are asking you to discuss tonight, are the pros and cons of what we have. In our opinion, it comes down to a couple of options, a ground lease option or a sale option. And we laid out the pros and cons of both. And there are definitely pros and cons on both sides of the argument, depending on which side you're on. And so I don't want to try and provide a lot of interpretation on that. In NCPRD's mind, to keep the project moving forward how we want, a ground lease is what we prefer, but that's not dealing with necessarily long-term. And that's ultimately what you all as the policymakers have to figure out is what should be the disposition. You have the unique position of acting as both our board and the Board of County Commissioners. And ultimately it's between those two parties that we have to figure this land disposition out. So I think at that, I would like to leave it for question from the board that hopefully Jeff and I can answer.
When are we due to make a decision on this? On the land lease / purchase, whatever we're doing.
As soon as
Yeah,
possible.
So as soon as possible is preferred. You discussed this in December. You directed staff to work with the community to get their input, which is in your notes. That meeting occurred in February last month. And many of those people are in the room tonight. We're bringing this back to you as a discussion. We're not asking for a decision tonight unless you want to. But tonight you're discussing this as the Parks District, and then we'll bring it to the county commissioners to discuss as the commissioners in the next week or so. But we're seeking your guidance on what direction you'd like to go as soon as possible, please.
Yeah, I would like to have a discussion of that tonight, and I'm looking at the script and I see no action item on there. So we could, like you said, we could do it. Commissioner Salas, you have a part of.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. So just a little bit of background. I appreciate my apparently staff prefers that they lease it. And as the board of directors of NCPRD, I believe that honoring past promises is important, and not that there was a given there. There's not a given there. I think the expectation was by the Concord Task Force, which was both a combined effort between library people and Parks District people at the time. In both capacities, the agreement was to, and the expectation was that the land would be purchased. And for a couple of reasons. One of the primary reasons was there was a perception that the district was going to subsidize the library, which would have been unfair perhaps to a number of people inside the district and outside the district. I do know I heard concerns from people, mostly from Milwaukee, thinking that that was not quite fair. I agree that it's not fair for the district to subsidize the library. So it was well established before then, as I stated many years ago when I first heard that no, the land will be purchased. That was the plan. And I think that there was a $300,000 set aside or estimate of what the land value might be or not. And that's in the packet tonight of $125,000 for the actual footprint of the library. But also at the time, the library was going to be attached to this building we're in today, and that's changed a little bit. So the dynamics today, in all fairness, the dynamics have changed a little bit, but still, I think it would behoove us for two reasons. Number one, it is fair for the district to say, be concerned about the disposition of the property in the future if it no longer becomes a library. So I think it's fair to have some kind of clause or language in the deed, if you will, where it is compatible or a like use of library use, for example. But on the flip side, just taking my hat off and putting on the county hat, it's also a concern to make sure that the land where NCPRD resides remains a park and not sold for different purposes or used for different purposes. So I think that concern about the disposition of the land and use of the land, if something was a change, is really on both sides. But at the end of the day, the people that are benefit from this project for the library and the park are all the same people. And a lot of those people that have been on the DAC or been on the Concord Task Force and whatnot, a lot of those people are in the room, not all of them, but a lot of those people are in the room. So my preference is to be consistent with what everyone's assumption was and what staff had suggested, which was a purchase of the land.
Commissioner Salas, I appreciate your a little history lesson on there. However, there's 3 new board members who have not been privy to those conversations probably. But what I want to do is I want to change it not from that, but I want to change it to what's possible and doable. Attorney Jeffrey Munns, what is your opinion?
I think that you can do either and accomplish the goals that are central to this, which are, stable operation of the library. To these compatible uses that Commissioner Salas talks about. This is something we can accomplish either through a lease agreement or through the sale agreement, and then through the operational agreement that we would have between the two entities. If you do a lease, you have to also kind of either case, you have to make NCPRD whole for the use of this property that they currently own by the county. And that can be done, if we talked about one option being a purchase, pay up front like normal transaction. It could be structured in a different manner so that it's compatible with, you know, county finances that are available, and still in the end, make NCPRD whole. The same can be accomplished through a lease payment, or, you know, some discussion in the past as well. If there's no payment, then there has to be some sort of option. What do we do with the building in the end that is fair to both parties? And that gets to be a difficult conversation in some ways because it's so far in the future. But those can all be accomplished. The things that affect stability are what Commissioner Savage talked about. Incompatible uses could be a problem. That can be accomplished in either type of an agreement. And if, say, ownership of one parcel or the other changed hands, and then that new entity wanted to do something different with it. Say, NCPRD no longer wants to have the library on their property. And if these two entities, the Parks District and the county, are separate, they're together as related entities, but the Parks District is separate, a different leadership, through a different board. And they said, we don't want to have the library. If it was a lease, there's a potential they could terminate the lease and buy the library. And that would be disruptive to the library. Can't hear in the back. Can't hear in the back?
Can't hear that.
Gonna move the microphone, maybe see if that helps. All right. Hear it better? All right. Well, I think that, you know, you can accomplish some of these goals with either type of an agreement. It's just what is the better policy as you see it? Is it better for this chunk of land to be owned by the county to operate the library, but then of course it does break up this parcel for NCPRD in the future? Or is it better to have this parcel remain together for the Parks District in the future and the county then lease the land? It's kind of 6 of one, half a dozen the other in many ways. But I think for, you know, what we want to accomplish with the stable operations of the library, compatible uses of the two facilities can be done in either form. So I can't put my finger on the scale and say it has to be this one or the other.
Okay, so, all right, thank you. So let's say, we wanted, the parks, or excuse me, the libraries. Grover, wanted to buy from the NCPRD, where would the money come from and how much is it? Can somebody tell me that?
I don't know the answers to where the money comes from. I think that what you pledged so far in the past, for building a library, there's a lot of different sources of funding for the construction of the library. This is county general fund, there's grant money, and so on. We have reserved library district funds as well to be developed. So there's a lot of different funds there, it depends on how much, but I have in the packet from calculations we have based on this appraisal, the footprint alone is 155,000 roughly. That doesn't take into account setbacks. If we were to do a lot line adjustment type of a sale arrangement, there might be setback requirements, requiring some additional land, as well as if there's going to be any other areas of exclusive use for the library. Like say we have the library footprint plus a chunk of land set aside that would be part of NCPRD's operation of the site. Those are all things that could be negotiated through an operating agreement between the two parties. And we just don't have shape to those discussions yet, is what's going to be required. But that's the kind of the rate.
Gary, can you answer?
If the county's gonna buy it, I suggest you use general fund, which you could just authorize $8.1 million. You can accommodate this.
Okay, Commissioner, so that's good to know, Commissioner, we need to be thinking about this, Mr. Schrader, and then Mr. Sales.
I guess my question is, library buildings are very specific for libraries. So my sense would be you want it to be a library in perpetuity. And it would be the last county library, am I correct, that we'd be operating? It would be, unless there's an agreement between Blackstone, and there probably will be at some point. So in order to maintain it as a library, what would be better, to own the land or to lease the land? Because if you lease the land and that lease is gone, then that building is up for grabs, right?
Right, that's the difference. What you're balancing here is if you buy it, there is that stability to the library because the county owns the land. Right. But then as the Parks District, you're sitting, you know, at the board of the Parks District tonight. It's what is it better for the Parks District to balance that? For the parks, it is maybe to keep the site there and that they own the entire site. Those are the two kind of policy points that you're balancing.
With language again, that would say something along the lines of It remains a library in perpetuity, basically. I mean, or the lease would not terminate unless the use of the building significantly changed or, so it doesn't have to put a 50-year time limit. It can really just, say until it's intended or its current use or other public similar uses. You had a great phrase for that. I forget what it was, but it doesn't have to have a time limit. It's really more the purpose of what the building is.
And that can be accomplished with either arrangement, like a lease, that language is, this is what the land is leased for exclusively or similar uses, and if you're going to be purchasing a portion, you can put a deed restriction on that property just the same. And the operation agreement between the Parks District and the county would also outline other manners in which they're going to cooperate in operations.
So that's really the ownership of the dirt company, the library that saves you. Why did you prefer Mr. Board? Yeah.
Really, and I didn't want to, I wanted to make sure that you were clear. I wasn't advocating that. I said lease was the way to go. I prefaced it with, we are on a fairly rigid timeline to get this project going and started. And so my concern is if there are complications with the land purchase, that can take more time. A lease with the protections for both sides of in perpetuity and all of that, it makes more sense right now because we can get that accomplished a lot quicker.
Yeah, and it will accomplish the same thing.
Exactly.
Yeah, I think that either can allow the project to go forward on schedule, because what we would do, as we've done in our arrangement with last, so for instance, with an IGA, a intergovernmental agreement between the parties to allow the county to begin construction of the library while we complete whatever the transaction is going to be for the final agreement.
Okay, Mr. Savas.
I was gonna say, Mr. Munn just kind of touched on that. There is a way to do the purchase and not slow the project down. I simply get an agreement that we're gonna buy it and the details are all hammered out. It's the project can still go forward, is what I'm saying. And Mr. Munn has spoken that prior. What I did want to say was I'm sure that, that when I take my NCPRD hat off, I put my county hat on and build a library, I think most of us would say, whether it's our home or an investment, that we probably want to own the land underneath it. So, I'm inclined to suggest, and not going too far out on a limb, that when I take this hat off and I put the other hat on, I'm going to want to own the land. I think that's naturally where I'm inclined, but I'm just one person here tonight. But what I did want to say was that the reason this Concord task force was somewhat put together was to reduce the cost of this project. For example, and we did come to a good place. I mean, the community had a lot of diverse ideas, and the fact that they all came together with just 100% unanimous consent on how to move the Concord project forward, I thought was amazing, and my credit to everyone who was part of that. But the piece of that, what I'm trying to really point out here is that there are investments in order to bring this property, whether it's the library property or the NCPRD property, up to standards to do this construction. So there's intangible investments besides the dirt underneath it that the library district will be sharing in the cost for: parking, sidewalk improvements, other improvements on the property. Those are things that wouldn't go with the lease if there was a changeover. So all the more reason that this is a mutual effort to make it fair for the district, make it fair for the county and library patrons. I think we need to do it because of the optics, as fairly and consideration of the community in mind for the long run. Thank you.
Commissioner Thole.
Yes, we have one on site, and we need to get these questions resolved as soon as we can. Master plan the entire site to include your part and my part. So if it is in fact true that a lease would be a fast track way to get this done, then I think we might find that attractive. But right now, again, we have so much going on here, so many things to be in plan. It would be nice to have a master plan, the entire site, so we don't run into confusion in the future.
Commissioner West.
This is my first meeting with the NCPRD.
I was in the parking lot for 10 minutes looking for the beauty center about the school. So that's me coming from Wilsonville and and learning along the way here, just being fully transparent. So, Mr. Warrenfield, I super appreciate the email because I need that history, obviously, being here about this space, so I very much appreciate it. I'm just gonna chime in here on this issue about purchasing or leasing or opening. I like the idea of owning the land. The county owning the land. I'm gonna echo what Commissioner Savas said. And then I'll do a lot of listening tonight as I'm catching up with the rest of you in this aspect of parks business, county business, and all the rest. So it's an honor to be here tonight, and at least next time I won't wander the parking lot for 10 minutes looking for a beauty center.
Great, thank you. So Gary, if you're going to entertain a motion tonight to purchase the land, do we leave items like footprint blank? Do we leave the cost blank? How do we determine that?
If you were to make that motion, I recommend the motion be or direct staff to go ahead and pursue Clackamas County purchasing the land for the library, work out the details, come back to a business meeting with the details.
Paul,
Yeah, you make a motion.
would you please?
Yeah. So wearing my library hat, I move as board director to.
No.
No part.
Not part.
But I say.
Library. See what you've done, bro.
Shame on you.
Wow, thank you.
I know.
On behalf of NCPRD, as a member of the board, I move that we direct staff to move forward with the sale of the land to the county for library purposes. I'll second.
Commissioner Sanis has moved that we moving ahead with purchasing the land for a library and details to follow. And Commissioner West has seconded the motion. Any further discussion from the board? Hearing none, Tony, would you please take the poll?
Commissioner Schultz. Aye. Apologies. Director Schrader,
Aye.
Director West,
Aye.
Director Savas,
Aye.
Chair Smith.
Aye, motion passes 5-0. We have our. Not very good. We are now, hearing this next.
Yeah, I just have to put a vote on this. So next we'll bring us to the Clackamas County Commissioners, where you should confer with this division the next 2 weeks. And then back for all the documents and details and then bring it back to us.
Can we go ahead and instruct, get going on the documents?
Support.
Yeah.
And it's one of the things, if I could add, Chair, we received an email from Thelma, and I just wanted to say, thank you for the input in that, the impression was that I was representing NCPRD, more so than the county in some of the discussion. I just wanted to kind of provide some insight into how our office handles some of these issues where we represent both Parks District and the county on things that are related. I've spent a number of years now with the county, and I've worked on both library issues and the parks issues, but whenever I work on a project that involves two different county entities, I have a coworker look at my work essentially to make sure that it's being looked at from different perspectives. So it is something I think that everybody would benefit from hearing, kind of how we handle this in the county to make sure that decisions are handled fairly and in a way that really benefits all the outcomes that we're looking for.
And your coworker is another lawyer this way.
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you.
So we have many lawyers in Clackamas County, we wear different hats and on their duties, and I feel very confident. With Mr. Midas, he's doing an exceptional job. And you have a card, you can speak a little bit, okay?
I know.
Yeah, thank you. And so, Gary, how do we proceed on it?
Yes, so next on the agenda is the consent agenda. Tell me to please read the consent agenda.
North Clackamas Parks and Recreation District consent agenda. Item 1, approval of meeting minutes from the December 7th, 2022 North Clackamas Parks and Recreation District Board of Director meeting. Item 2, approval of the intergovernmental grant agreement with the state of Oregon for kitchen improvements at Milwaukee Community Center. Grant value is $20 million. Funding is through the Oregon Department of Human Services. No county general funds are involved. Item 3, approval of an intergovernmental grant agreement with the state of Oregon for security enhancements at the Milwaukee Community Center. Grant value is $25,000 for 1 year. Funding is through the Oregon Department of Human Services. No county general funds are involved. Item 4, approval of an addendum to lease agreement with Cascade Heights Charter School for Clackamas Elementary School buildings and grounds. addendum value is $147,746 per year. Lease value is $818,720 for 6.25 years. Funding is through the lease. No county general funds are involved. Madam Chair, that concludes the list.
Thank you, Tony. Is there any commissioner who wishes to remove anything from the consent agenda?
Chair, I actually have a question.
Yep.
And I was trying to pull it up, but I was not able to find the exact language. Can you repeat the 6.2 years? I don't, why was that in there? What does that mean?
That's the total value of what we've collected
Thus far.
on that lease.
It's not an obligation.
No, No, the 147,746.
Thank you.
Okay. I'll entertain a motion.
Chair, I move that we approve the consent agenda as read.
Second.
Commissioner West has moved, we approve the consent agenda as read, and Commissioner Trader has seconded that motion. Any further discussion? I see none. Tony, please take the poll.
Director West,
Aye.
Director Schrader,
Aye.
Director Savage,
Aye.
Director Schultz, Chair Smith.
Aye, motion passes 5-0. Thank you very much. Gary, what's next?
Next is District Administrator and District Director. I'm the District Administrator. I just want to thank the Parks District staff for their outstanding work every single day to serve members of the public, all of us. Thank you.
And I would just echo that, as our chair has mentioned, our staff works really hard. We equate it to the carnival trick of the spinning plates on the sticks. And we have a lot of plates in the air at any given time, and the dedicated staff, both on the operations, day-to-day level of the lifeguards and swim folks, and Milwaukee Community Center, all the way up to our planning staff and our district directors. We have submitted our 3-month monthly district division report as part of your packet. So I think that speaks for itself. If anybody had any specific questions, otherwise I would give my time to be able to have as much public comment.
I do too. I do have a quick question. How is your staffing levels doing on that? Because I know you hire seasonal, we're going to be able to get seasonal people. And I say with the greatest sincerity, we, all organizations, including Clackamas County, are encountering staffing issues. So you may have this great ambition to move forward, and you want this and this and this, but you're going to have to be patient. We can only move as fast if we have the staff available. We're always looking to hire. If you go on our website, every week there's a dozen jobs out there. So I just want to let you know that. How are we doing?
Full-time benefited staff positions are nearly full. We always come to, in and outs going on, but we are concerned, as we always are, with our seasonal staff. I believe last season we were able to get up to, I want to say within park maintenance, I don't remember necessarily with sports and recreation, but all of those, we swelled to almost 300 part-time staff in the summer. And I believe we were at about 60 to 65%
Right.
last year.
And that will say this goes to hours of operation, folks. Do we have lifeguards for the aquatic center? If we don't have adequate lifeguards, we're not going to be able to be open. I'm just saying we're trying to do the best we can to meet the needs. Just wanted to let you folks know that. Thank you, Mike.
Thank you.
I appreciate that. We're going to move on to public communication. We have many cards here. This portion of the agenda shall be limited to items of district business which are properly the object of board consideration and should be nonpartisan in nature, as the NCPRD Board of Directors, the nonpartisan governing body under Oregon Revised Statutes and County Code. Testimony is limited to 3 minutes. Comments shall be respectful and courteous to all. As a reminder, you can email submissions for public comment at bcc@clackamas.us, and these will be accepted as part of the public record. I will now open the public meeting for in-person testimony. I have a few cards here. It's nice to see so many people want to participate. And I hope I'm pronouncing this name correctly, but if I don't, I know that you will correct me. So, is it Janet B? Yeehaw. Come on forward. Yes, please say your name, area of residence, and you have 3 minutes.
Janet Beal, Milwaukee.
Beal?
Great. Oh, sorry. Or is that not me?
Martha and I was a.
I was in Okay, sorry.
Well, I actually have a request and comment, and I turned in the card long before many discussions were held. My request and comment is, could facilities announce community meetings such as this on the reader board outside, out front? It would be a wonderful opportunity to share the inclusion with the local community, let folks know that this is where it's happening, and
Even commissioner would like to know that.
when you make your comment and Salas made his comment, it was like, yes. That's all I have.
That's all you have.
That is all I
How you're
have.
easy tonight.
Pardon.
You're easy tonight.
Well, somebody has to put the notice on the board.
Yeah,
Next
I don't
meeting.
know. I don't know, Mike,
We're working on trying to figure out how to update that. There's the big one on the street that right now just says North Clackamas Parks.
Right.
And so we just need to figure out how to,
so it's
Get
not
into that.
an electronic reader, so we have to go out and assemble the letter.
Yes.
That's why I suggested
Man.
facilities when they're here.
You know
that
what?
Day.
You know, I think you should, think you should enlist one of the really ambitious volunteers to help them.
we now have their contact.
Oh, that's right, we have your
All right, so that's.
Thank you, Janet. That's a good suggestion. Up next, Gary Bucklewiski, please come forward and state your name, your area of residence, and you have 3 minutes.
Good evening, Commissioner Smith, Commissioners, and Minister Mann. What I'm going to say is probably redundant, but I want to say it anyway. I wanted to go into the Wayback Machine and give you a little bit of my early history. This pertains to supply. I grew up in eastern Nebraska, a little town just west of Omaha. And when I was roughly in the age range of 4 to 5 years old, my parents bought a house outside of our hometown that was on the Platte River. My father liked the outdoors, he liked to fish and hunt. This guy was a little close to it. So my memory is a little hazy on this. I actually called my brother last night to refresh on these things, make sure I was commanding. After we lived there a while, it turned out that somebody purchased the land under our house. My parents had bought the house, but didn't buy the land. And here's where my memory is really hazy. I don't know exactly what transpired, but pressure was put on my parents to sell at a very advantageous price, I'm sure. But my father, being the kind of person he was, said, no, not gonna do that. And he went about finding a house back in town that had a big lot next to it. And he purchased the house in town and a big lot. He hired movers. They came out and moved our house out by the river into town. It was $300, because I can still remember this. Free $100 bill. I thought that was phenomenal. I'd never seen a $100 bill. He left the property, fine shape, and we didn't look back, but we never regretted that. And I thought there was an object lesson in that. You might want to hear that. That's all I had. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Gary. That's a lovely story. Lovely.
Spokowski.
Oh, Kelsey. Yes, thank you very much. Next is Chip Skager.
He left.
Oh, we left. Oh, okay. Deborah Kelsey. Is that right?
Yes. Well, for reasons that you just heard, if you are sitting on a property that you don't own, you don't know what's going to happen in the future. And for all the time and effort and work and money that we put into hopefully the library construction, we have to make sure that that library stays there and it stays a library. So when you need us to BCC, I encourage you to motion to purchase the land.
Thank you very much. Very good. Up next, Bella Hagenmiller.
My guess in the future was it probably costs more than $300 to move the library.
I know, isn't that amazing?
So good evening, Chair Smith and Commissioners and Administrator Schmidt. My name is Donna Hagenmiller. I reside in the unincorporated area of North Clackamas County, known as Oak Grove. I actually live just south of Concord Road, a few blocks from this property. My girls both attended middle school in this very building. I didn't think I was going to be here tonight because of a prior commitment, but that meeting was changed to tomorrow, so I can say in public what I've already sent to you. I sent an email to all of you giving my thoughts on this, which Chair Smith, when you had an agenda item on there, you did not call for public comment before you took your vote. Sorry about that. My statement about the argument is going on in the silos within our county governments. Now, I've already read this, I've already sent this to you, so you know what I'm gonna say. The silos within our county governments as to what to do with the land under the future Oak Lodge Library on the Concord property. This conversation should not even be taking place right now because neither the Parks District nor the County Library District owns the property. The taxpayers own the property. And I heard Mr. Bork say that right now he was working on a rigid timeline. All this is doing is muddying the waters for the project. Shouldn't even be discussed right now. It's a moot point after your vote tonight. Thank you for the vote. But I would have liked to have said something under citizen comment on the agenda item. So,
Go ahead and say it now, Thelma.
huh?
Go ahead and say it now.
I just said it. I think that it's a moot point. You shouldn't be discussing this land issue tonight because the taxpayers, we own the property. They don't own the property and the library doesn't own the property. We own the property. And all it's doing is muddying the waters for the project to move forward, whatever we're doing with this whole project. I want to see the project move forward. I don't want to hear that we have an ownership issue in this because we own the property, not you guys. Okay, the second thing is as Jeff said, the county council, you say you're conversing with other county council people, but there's no transparency in there to the citizenry. We have not seen anybody talk on behalf of the library.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Would you like to comment?
I'm sure I just answered the question about ownership, they actually, this property, there's a deed in the name of North Clackamas Parks and Recreation District, I can go, I can give you a legal opinion going all the way back to the commons and the Anglo-American common law, but I think it's a little bit excessive to talk about why things that are owned by the public as a whole, supported by taxpayers, are actually owned in the name of the government entity.
Is there anybody in the room who would like us to reverse our previous motion about buying the land for a library? I'd like to see a show of hands. You would like us, sir, to, well, you are one, yes. Yes, sir, I'm gonna ask you if you'd like to appear on public comment, you come forward and fill out a blue card, I will call on you. I think you're a little bit outnumbered. Okay, thank you. We're gonna continue. Ron Campbell, please come forward, state your name, your area of residence, and you have 3 minutes. Ron Campbell. Not in the room, okay. If he comes back, let me know.
Gibbs is back.
This guy's called Chip.
Oh, Chip, you're back?
Yes.
Okay. Chip, come on up. Please state your name, your area of residence, and you have 3 minutes. I see you're on the library board.
No, I'm not now, but I was. Thank you very much. I'm just here. I live on Fairworks Avenue. So, this was a very important subject to me, and I prepared to give you my most powerful arguments. We should buy this property, but I don't need to. Thank you guys, so I'm gonna take this opportunity to thank you. I when I was 3 years ago. When they were to actually work on this, about this, and he assured me that we buy this land, and that this was because we were looking for other pieces of land, and it's important to know that on board. And he said, we'll never buy a piece of land at this price, at $300,000 for a library. So this is a good deal, guys. Here's listening. I don't need to know. So this is really wonderful. That was the original plan, and I'm very happy this plan is going through. Very happy you guys voted for it. Gary, I'm very happy that you were able to things that happened. So thank you very much, and it's a good night.
Thank you. We bet. Thank you, Chip, for coming forward. Ms. Blackmore, please come forward. Welcome. Please state your name, area of residence, and you have 2 minutes.
Good evening, Chair Smith and Commissioners and County Administration. Basically, thank you for your landmark decisions that you've made today and recently that support the Oak Lodge Library. And thank you for supporting the best vision and the best version of the partnership of the library and NCPRD in Concord. Together, the library and NCPRD will lift up the community in many marvelous ways. Thank you very much.
Thank you for coming forward. I think it's marvelous that we have a library here. And kids can come in and check out books so they can run outside and play on the yard equipment before they go home. To me, that's just, something that would be really remarkable. Up next is Jan Carruthers.
Hi there, Jan Carruthers, Jennings Lodge. Has 3 things really quickly to say. First of all, I was going to say yes, so I vote yes, and thank you so much for the purchase, whatever it takes to make it happen. The second thing to speak about is the concept of ongoing accessibility of facilities. I know that accessibility costs money in many respects. And I also just request that it always be a function, that it isn't just this will be an accessible park and this one won't. So however, whatever it takes to find ways, because you shouldn't have to be able-bodied, still enjoy the park. That's just the second thing is, the third thing is actually, I understand that there's a possibility that we may not have Milwaukee in NCPRD. It's possible. And since that is uncertain, it occurs to me that we have a second community center here in this building, and it has a commercial kitchen. The commercial kitchen in the district right now is the Milwaukee Center. So if Milwaukee leaves, we don't have a commercial kitchen. So I'm just laying that out as a concern for this board of directors. And again, one more quick thing, Chair Smith, for me, it's I think we're all aware the money is the reality. Tight money is reality, and we've gotten a lot of things committed to. I agree with that. It doesn't keep us though from asking. It's not because we're insensitive or thoughtless. It's because we lay forward possibilities. And it's our job. And I'm grateful that you're willing to hear them, but I don't want to feel bad for asking, even though you might have to say nothing. Thanks a lot.
Thank you very much. Up next, Fred Sawyer.
Hello, my name is Fred Sawyer. I wanted to say real short thing, that's I don't know what off subject what you do, but it's general survey. You probably all know about the polling project. And in that project, they include mitigation for the project we're doing, and but they don't include mitigation to allow us water down the lawn. We need to have complete the sidewalk between Rockford and Dave, and between Chestnut and 14 in front of Old Brothers. So in your other role, maybe you can help us do that, so people can walk to the place for the whole community without walking on the shoulder of the highway. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Up next, Rich Nippon. Welcome. Please state your name, the area of residence, and you have 3 minutes.
Rich Nippon, 3463 Southeast McCartney Lane, 3 blocks due south of the Red Mart. Who has it down? One of the directors. Thank you, directors, for approving the purchase of the property. Wanted to point out the future is long, hopefully not ending. And if you think back 100 years, we couldn't imagine where we are today. The day may come when we decide that we need to build a bigger, better library somewhere else. And that needs to be considered in what the end result is of the contracts that the employer put together. I was in favor of anything that would work. There's no bad way to do it, as has been pointed out. We can do a lease. I know there's been discussion about at least short term until the sale, if that made it work any quicker. It was a 6-month lease or 1-year lease leading to a sale. That may be a possibility if they needed to do that. You know, again, that's for lawyers to decide. So basically, that's it. I just want to make sure everybody's looking forward. And I should say, I'm a member of the Friends of the Oak Lodge Library, so I am a proponent of the library. I tell people I graduated from the public library because they skipped my senior year of high school and went to the library every day. But library is important, community is important. Putting the two together, I think, is a wonderful thing. In fact, I live 3 blocks away, makes it even better. Thank you.
Thank you, Rick, for coming forward. I have one last card. Did Ron Campbell return? No, okay, I just want to make sure of that. Tony, that's all the cards I have. Is there anything else you'd like to justify who has not done so yet? Seeing none, Tony, do we have anybody online who would like to define?
Madam Chair, at this time, I don't have anyone registered to speak. If you would like to testify, please use the raise hand feature and I will call on you in the order received. Madam Chair, I do not have any hands raised at this time.
I'm just curious, is there anybody on Zoom that you can tell how many?
I have 12 people sitting in the audience on Zoom.
I have 12 people, I see you. I just want to know. I'm curious, right? Okay. I will now close the this portion of the meeting on public testimony. And I will go to board of communication. And my list, I need Director Savage, you're up first.
Thank you, Chair. I happened to be in the building here in this very room here a couple of weeks ago, I think, is that right, Mike? Yeah, last week, yeah, it was. And I also heard, Mr. Bornefeld, speak about the outreach effort, Gary. I know we're gonna, sound like we're gonna accommodate whatever we can. But there was also a comment that was made later, Siri was here, it looks like he left, but about making sure that maybe we need to change all the coordination with NCPRD. I want to make sure that when we do outreach, we're getting as much coverage. I don't care what the issue is, whether it's Jenny's Lodge School or it's, you know, the sub areas for election and all that. But whatever assistance we can offer to make sure we get the word out, you know, in a proper way, just for broadcasting events and so forth. Coming again, my earlier comments about the handicap we've all suffered as a result of NCPRD or the hiatus and COVID and all that. We're trying to rebuild and get people re-engaged and get that energy back that we once had here in our community. So those are my comments, Mr. Chair.
Good comments. Thank you, Commissioner Savage. Commissioner Slater, you're up.
Yeah, well, I just want to say you never go wrong building libraries. So I'm really glad that we've, after a long time, we've gotten to this point where all our communities will have, you know, and access to information. I want to thank Mr. Ward, Mr. Luns for coming on this journey with this, but I'd also like to give some kudos, take off my library hat to NCPRD, because I just shared, you had a post on Facebook where you're taking 2 parks and doing pollination gardens in those parks. Can you tell me who's doing this? Because I'm kind of interested in seeing that expanded administrator.
We added several pollinator beds to our natural areas last year as part of our capital repair and replace upgrades. Or I should say we budgeted, I think we did one, and there's another couple that are coming in spring. This may be one of them that you're coming on. Yeah,
So
yeah.
I sure might get a chance to, you know.
We will send you. We'll send you information.
I can put B-boxes out.
That I'm not sure if we're doing V-box.
You don't have to have trees.
Right.
Now you're released, they're pretty benign.
You're speaking the chair's language.
Okay, I was supposed to some B-boxes out there. You know, we're building a new courthouse, and I know we're talking about art. And in Lincoln, Sweden, they have the most beautiful bee sculpture here that I've ever seen.
What kind of a sculpture?
That's a sculpture of a bee. Flower. And when I saw that, I was talking to the art. I consider seeing where that piece is going to go. And it would be nice to do it in a garden, but you took it from your budget and had facility people do that.
We had, if we're talking about the same one, yes. Yeah, it's part of our natural area development.
Okay, so I'm just gonna put a plug in for that, guys, because it would make me weird to have a few boxes by the courthouse for the pollination garden. But
We'll run that by Judge Field.
Well, Judge Field, okay, all right, thank you, but thanks, that was great to see that.
Thank you.
Yeah, created quite a buzz.
Yeah.
Oh, come on. Really?
Thank you, Commissioner West.
I feel like that Director Schrader has a little bit of a bias as an entomologist.
Yes,
But I think that would be great. She also encouraged us to put some bees in our backyard, some mason bees in our backyard, so they'll be fun to do this season.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm kind of a lucky guy up here. I mean, I get to jump right into the frying pan, but I get to make fun votes. You guys have been struggling with a lot of these things long before I was on this commission. But it has been an honor to be able to help bring it over the finish line on a number of these issues, and hopefully we can continue to do good government and get good projects done in an economic way that meets the needs of the community that we can all be proud of and all of us participate in. And that's the sign of a strong community. And community matters because it means healthy societies and happy neighbors and all those things that we strive for. So thank you to all of you here tonight that are modeling what good citizenry is all about. and inspire us to help represent you even better and to work hard for you. And I hope to make some more fun votes with you guys. So thank you for the fun library votes and fun parks votes, buying a little land. These are big things that that we've done together, and I look forward to continue to do them with you.
Thank you, Director Scholl, you're up.
Yes, good evening. You know, the challenges of civic projects have never been easy or inexpensive. If you look at history's most beautiful civic projects, they always were expensive at the time. And any beautiful, functional, and lasting civic improvement project starts with an idea, and then a concept of what the ideal project looks like, and in reality of budgetary and financial constraints, and you come up with a project that is within parameters of both desire and ability. It all takes your community's hope and endurance and tenacity. And tonight, I see those qualities here in this room. I thank each of you for dreaming and working hard and not giving up. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Director Scholl. I'm not sure if you folks have heard me say this, but Director Commissioner Fraser and I share two important passions. We were both librarians and we're both beekeepers. However, I prefer honeybees because I like the honey. Why get stung if you can't get some benefit of getting stung like eating honey? Just want to say, thank you all for coming and participating. We look forward to our next meeting and keep us all informed. Seeing no further business before this Board of Directors of NCPRD, we are adjourned.